Welcome back. We have an absolutely massive episode for you today as we go through the winners and the losers of gaming. All of the earnings reports have happened. We have compiled everything you need to know to get that maximum top-level view of the industry, and it is a damn fascinating quarter. Big news for Activision Blizzard and quite a lot of other groups in the industry as well. And if that's what you like in general, well, check out today's sponsor. Ground News. Their mission is more important than ever. I mean, you cannot know what you have not been shown, and that's a massive problem in today's algorithm-driven world, and ground.news/Bellular solves this. I got them on board because I believe in their mission of cutting through the bullshit, the spin, and the bias. They're founded by a NASA engineer. They aggregate news from over 50,000 worldwide sources with full bias breakdowns for all outlets, as well as what types of outlets even bother to cover stories, which lets you fix your blind spots. Now here's the problem in our algorithm-generated, driven world, which of course I'm pretty familiar with from working on YouTube. And you'll know it yourself. I mean, you click on one thing and that's all YouTube shows you. This is a massive problem, in a way. Because it means your habits become self-reinforcing. That can be great, but when it comes to your information that you're shown, well, you're shown what an algorithm knows you will click on. And that leads to the modern human, us, quickly beginning to live in our own reality where we only see certain things. Ground News helps you live in base reality. I mean, look at their front page. You'll see all the news, as well as how that news has been covered. So it feels then like you get to sit above all the noise and see what's actually happening from all of those different perspectives. Whenever world news is breaking, I use my Ground News subscription. I go there because I don't want to be messed around. I want to see what different people are saying, but to be honest, I don't have the time to go and research it myself. Let's be real, we live in a world where often we find out what's going on because of retweets, or reactions to headlines, or biased, factually dubious sources, or, God forbid, even the Facebook algorithm. So Ground.News exists to let you find your footing in the truth, to have a 40,000-foot view of what's actually going on, one that takes you out of the reactionary trenches and empowers you to be a well-informed individual who can think for themselves. So ground.news/Bellular. Subscribe there for unlimited access to what is quickly becoming one of the most useful tools to navigate the modern media landscape. Okay, thanks for paying the bills. Activision Blizzard King. Come on, we've got to get started with the big fun one because, man, they've got a lot going on, especially as when I talk to a few of my friends who they like Modern Warfare, they're kind of saying, what are Infinity Ward doing? Where are the maps? What's going on? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, when has that ever mattered to the bottom line of Activision Blizzard? I think that's kind of the interesting question. It always goes well. And it is unfortunate. Every time we've seen one of these, we said this could be the last one because Microsoft might take over. And that'll be it for the end of this this delivery of data every quarter. Though how things are looking, we might still have them for a long time.
I'd certainly miss the ritual. So in terms of the top line things, right? Revenue, $2.3 billion, up 7.9%. Bookings, up 43.4%. And their net income is, down 28.5%. But also, this isn't just the quarter, this is also their end-of-year statement. And when you look at that, well, you actually see their overall revenue is down 14.5%, their bookings are up 1.9%, and their net income is down 43.9%. And to be honest with you, these are kind of surprising to me as I read them out, because I think about Modern Warfare 2. I think about that being the absolute gargantuan seller. And yeah, I'm kind of surprised, honestly.
I assume it must just be ground they're losing to everyone else in the general market. I think that has to be it. Because obviously Warzone being a massive part, Call of Duty Mobile doing a massive part of their overall income and stuff like that. It just kind of goes... How much of that is silently being lost to people who are sticking with the games that are more permanent, more stable, I think. Because obviously Warzone having the Warzone 2 switch over, there's a little bit of... Change is often a good thing, but I think at the same time, change puts players off. If the change isn't measured and small, they go, because change is uncertainty. And a lot of what I think people have learned to do with battle royales and shooters is I'm going to finish whatever my life's stuff is, and then I'm going to play this game. and I'm going to play it the same way that I always do, with some maybe some minor battle changes, maybe some additions, but it is that case of they're scrambling to try and hold on to this, and I think the scrambling itself is maybe causing them damage.
Yeah, well, from what I understand, they've been quite literally scrambling to make Warzone 2 feel a bit more like Warzone 1.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So as we go through then, let's talk about Blizzard. So, good news for them. Their MAUs are actually up. 31 million is what Q3 was. 45 million is what Q4 was. So, they've increased their MAUs by 45%, which is 114% over Q4 of last year when they had only 21 million. So, yeah, they've over doubled it in a year. Now, of course, we think about Overwatch 2, and we think about there being a World of Warcraft expansion as well as continued Diablo Immortal growth. And this meant that they've done well. Their segment revenue and operating income grew 90% year over year in Q4 of 2022. I think we should note, though, previous year, definitely a weak one.
Yeah, I think,
to say the least. It had a few good things, I guess, like D2R and stuff, but...
Yeah, I think it's fundamentally Blizzard have actually released games.
Yeah.
And everyone went, oh yeah, you release games? Okay, well, that's where the money comes in. And that's fundamentally the problem that Blizzard continue to face when everyone else in the industry, or, well, ideally, a lot of others in the industry don't have to release games to get money. They have their live services just continually operate, continually pump. And unfortunately, that's not the case for Blizzard. Despite them attempting that, they have this issue of if we don't make things happen, we don't get money. And I think that's long been the, what was it they said? It was like, the good days are around the corner. Once our games release, once we have, World of Warcraft better, once we've Overwatch 2 PvE out, once we've got Diablo 4 out, then it'll be big time money for us. But until those are out, it's not. But you can kind of see that, even if the last quarter was bad, 90% increase is still pretty good.
Yeah, and like they had said that for Overwatch, they did experience like a bunch of peaks even in terms of their revenue.
Yeah.
So I imagine like that's what they want, right? They want another consistent live game that can operate in the same way that WoW has, and that it's just money forever. Speaking of which, WoW made over $100 million in net bookings in the fourth quarter, which means that we can say World of Warcraft makes over... well, it's tricky because there's an expansion launch, but between like what, $250-450 million a year is like our kind of ballpark for World of Warcraft. That's me sort of putting in a low end just in case this is very much driven up by Dragonflight. But on that, Dragonflight's early sales have not reached the level of Shadowlands. This was immediately obvious to us as people covering the game. They did their whole max level trial thing. Well, not max level, but new expansion trial. They did a few other promotions and things like that, like getting 30 days of game time for free. Perhaps a situation where, as you compare to Shadowlands, which it has, they confirmed, not sold as well as, not only are we dealing with a very different, period of time. I mean, obviously, COVID, lockdowns, MMOs are going to do pretty well there. That Shadowlands Christmas was, I think, it was one of the big waves here. I don't know about the States, but that certainly will have helped Dragonflight. And I think another thing, too, is the macroeconomic side of things, where in and around those times, maybe people, they were getting money from the government, maybe stimulus checks, that kind of thing, which from what we understand did kind of, boost up consumer, stuff, which, I mean, led to that money just all going to the rich people anyway, but whatever. But now, you think about right now, a lot of people are not in as good a financial position. You combine that with the expansion being pretty expensive and all that, and But for Blizz, there is good news. They say community feedback has been positive. Post-launch subscriber retention is higher than recent expansions in the West. From our subjective experience, we're still playing and we're all having a lot of fun in the game. It is leaps and bounds better than the past two expansions. Personally, I think it is a better design than Legion. I think it would unequivocally be superior to Legion if it had a overall theme that felt as immediately ooh, hype, muscles, sweat, badass things, Varian Rin. Whereas this is just, hey, dragons, exploration. It's a bit more soft, which I don't think is going to convert as well in marketing. I think that will be seen in the sales, but also may be seen in the retention of the people who do stay around. Yeah,
I think to kind of follow that sidebar a little bit, I think if you're looking at the trend of video games, if you're interested like we are in, does a good game sell? What makes a game sell? What makes a game sticky for people, especially in the realm of MMOs or in live service games? World of Warcraft will be answering very soon a very, very important question that people have had for a long time, which is, is a good game enough, or does it also have to be a game that people go, oh yeah, I want that in the idea, in the themes,
Yeah.
because it's been tunneling in on a niche that's a little bit different from World of Warcraft. It's kind of changed, I guess, creatively directed in the direction. It's kind of changed a little bit.
Oh, it's softer. It's less badass.
Yeah, but also the game has been getting substantially better designed.
Yeah.
That's basically at almost every level of the player experience. So there's going to be a very fun thing to watch in that, even if you don't care about World of Warcraft specifically. It's going to be like, because I know we talk about Ubisoft as an example, and they don't seem to know what people want. There'd be an interesting, I guess, an answer to that question of what happens if you do this specifically on a purely thematic level while the game improves.
That's exactly it. So there's a phrase, it's not how hard you row, it's what boat you're in. Mm-hmm. And it's more the idea that if you work really, really hard, but not in the right area, you're going to have a far harder time than somebody who just works normal amount, but is in a very, good high growth area. And I think that applies here. They're sitting here, they're doing the hard work, far more consistent patches, way better content, faster class design. But the thing that gets people into your game, I don't want to say the story here, because it's not like the story of Legion was great or, super amazing, but it was cool. What matters is that fantasy that you're communicating to people. Warlords of Draenor and Legion and Wrath of the Lich King and TBC all had that super strong fantasy, and that's what they've been lacking in Dragonflight. Now, they have a great fantasy world, but I think that more broad appeal, like this will get a mass market in to this entertainment experience, I don't think that is going to be seen in maybe, I don't know, somebody trying to do the subtle acting of Alex Straza, because that's just different to orc shoots a big bomb, has a big axe, sticks it in a demon's skull, and yells freedom. He may as well have said, rock, flag, and eagle, USA, buy my game, for Warlords of Draenor. But so they don't have that. Now, if they can prove they can do the good work now, and then they can get a theme that is more resonant, WoW will be back. But if they do not have the humility to understand why the Drakthir were not particularly liked by a lot of players for their core theme and fantasy, if they can't be humble enough to understand that, then they're going to be capped in their growth. Because people will just never be interested in that. Yeah,
but thankfully for Blizzard, there's a graph that we have often used, and we've used it for the past couple of years to go, to be a little bit reductive, we have used it to go, haha, Blizzard are dang, haha, that's what you get. And it is the historical data, the Blizzard MAUs versus quarter. And look at that. They've finally got it almost back up to its peak.
And that is Overwatch 2 being free to play.
This Overwatch 2 being free to play, and you could even say, hey, maybe Diablo Immortal's a part of that. But Diablo Immortal was Q2 and Q3, not really all that high. So you see their
Overwatch is the thing that did it.
Yep, their collective effort and Overwatch, and also the obviously the launch of the Dragonflight expansion certainly brought some people back. So look, you've actually got your everything's running at full force MAU number there again. With more products, of course, so it's a little bit more, it's not as good before. But now that's one data point they get to go, hey, I mean, I imagine they're not, but if they wanted to, they could say that, internally, and say, hey, look, we're back. And this is before Diablo 4 launches in June of this year. So I think Blizzard are certainly heading for better times.
Yeah, and as you then take it to the overall ABK business highlights then, so COD Modern Warfare 2, highest opening quarter sell-through in franchise history, which I think is not particularly surprising. Blizzard doing really well, Candy Crush doing record performance, mobile has grown mid-teens year over year, overall in-game net bookings up 46% year over year. They still do seem to have issues with their, some of their revenue though, or maybe this with net income is just reflecting increased costs of development as they try to set up the future, because you're in a situation here where revenue's up, bookings are up, but income is down. So what sort of investments, or what is the impact of accounting in this, which is not exactly our specialty. So overall, I think they're pretty well set up. They've had a pretty solid, they've had a solid quarter, a solid enough year. They're going to continue to be the heel of the games industry as people see them, right?
I
don't know why I'm using wrestling terms, but here we go anyway. I think, though, that in this next year, there'll be a little bit of sink or swim for the Activision side as we see if they're able to actually have a decent content cadence. We've seen from the rumor mill talk of, at one point, they were basically going to do a campaign expansion plus a bunch of remastered maps for COD 2023. Now it seems like that's actually going to be a full COD 2023 that's being led by Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer, with everybody else helping as well, which to me is a bit worrying.
That's the mark of Activision desperation. Every single time they have to do that, it's because they're like, oh, our ship is sinking. We need all hands. And all hands on repairs.
Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it's Vanguard. And Vanguard is the thing that, almost like COD Ghosts, kind of said, hey, this is not, this is defeatable. And I think that that'll be the worrying thing for them. So they have a situation now where they need to stabilize Warzone 2. And for a lot of the people who did buy Modern Warfare 2, well, they probably want something other than remastered maps. They maybe want new maps to come in these seasons. A lot of people had an expectation for the second season of that game that clearly was not met by the announcement. So it's interesting for them, but let's move on a little bit quickly to FromSoft. We can also cover in today's video. So Elden Ring was the biggest not Call of Duty game of 2022.
And, I don't think a game has ever deserved that title quite as much.
Yep, and seeing that from a game that is absolutely core game through and through, that, it is what it is. It doesn't make any... Well, you know what I mean, right? It's the FromSoft type of unforgiving.
It is.
See that kind of experience, especially with their storytelling approach not being as accessible as, your very standard Western follow the main story thing. That was really nice to see. For them, and this is without any full expansions or DLC to boost any of these numbers, it drove a 123% revenue spike for their parent company, Kado-carried Corp, in the quarter. And then considering the rest of that division has Gotcha Games, who make RPG Creator, and Spike Chunsoft, who do Danganronpa, there's kind of a lot riding on FromSoft there. So, hey, they're doing good. And holy shit, we get Armored Core this year, which brings me back to some of my very, very early PlayStation 2 experiences.
Yeah, that'll be extremely interesting to see how well that goes, because obviously and this is where you get very disappointed in how the world works, because that's not going to sell like Elden Ring did. There is no universe in which that sells like that. If that even sells as much as like a Dark Souls 3 did, I'd be surprised, because the power of IP is a lot.
Yeah.
But it is going to be an exceptional game based on how they've talked about their plans and their approach in interviews. Everyone expects it from FromSoft. It's like, yeah, you haven't made a bad game since... Well,
they made a lot in the past.
You haven't made a bad game since Dark Souls. A lot of people will be able to say that. And you go, okay, well, you're just constantly winning under Miyazaki and under like that leadership and that approach.
There'll definitely be a battle down below for Demon Souls.
Yeah.
It's just definitely probably their most... Wow, I don't know if it'll be their most controversial Souls, because it's like the Proto Souls.
Demon Souls is messy, but I think Dark Souls 2 being the team that everyone goes, that's the B. The B team made that one and it wasn't as good and it almost killed the franchise, which isn't true.
Lighting engine.
Yeah. But I think the thing I want to talk about just slightly is Kado-carried Corp. This is weird because none of this matters. It's just Kado. it's just Kado. Like they are like, I don't know if they're the biggest, but they're basically the biggest publisher in Japan. They own so much, and they just basically picked up FromSoft on a whim. Come on ahead. We can afford that. We own so much, so they'll have a deep understanding of IP. They'll have a deep understanding of how that all works. So it'll be interesting to see if any of that's there. But in terms of like looking at the revenue spike for FromSoft, like basically, Kado-carried Corp had a 123% revenue spike. They're a massive publisher, and Elden Ring caused that theoretically, and that's insane. And then you look at like the other two people, and you go, well, was it Elden Ring? Was it FromSoft? And you look at like the other ones and go, yeah, they're super niche. They're super niche, so it is all FromSoft. They're putting like so much of that on their back.
Call of Duty numbers are something that basically nobody tries to get. Like, people try to get a lot of sales, but Call of Duty sales, it's like what COD, FIFA, those are so astronomical.
They're miracles, basically.
At least for COD. That a game like this, honestly, a game like Elden Ring being in the same like field, that is enough to give you some hope for humanity, honestly.
It really actually is when you think about that.
Because like that's big enough that it's not just us, us fucking nerd internet people who are playing a game as quality as Elden Ring. That is like, not bit of a tired word, but to say the normies, the people who are maybe just caught in FIFA, like some of them had to have picked up Elden Ring, and that they were able to, get into that experience. That does give me a bit of faith in humanity.
Yeah, especially in the game playing side of humanity, of going, oh yeah, are people susceptible to? That's a bit of a grim word to use, but are people willing to jump the fence if the fence is fun enough to jump over? And a lot of the games industry has been saying, no, not really. And obviously you've seen that manifest in so many ways. But Elden Ring, as we talked about ad nauseum last year, was just, yeah. If you give people a good experience, they will rise to the challenge, especially if it's smart enough to not be brutal.
Yeah.
Because the same wouldn't have happened with Dark Souls 1.
Or Demon's Souls. Definitely not Demon's Souls.
But
our next thing then, PlayStation.
Yes.
Right, straight up, they have had an absolutely banging year. They have solved a lot of their supply issues. They've gotten some big titles out. They are really reaping the rewards, having sales up 53% year over year to a cool $9.6 billion equivalent. They sold 7.1 million PS5s in Q3, up from 3.3 in Q2 of 2022, and that is after the price increases in everywhere but the States. So, I mean, PS5 demand is extremely strong, and rightly so. It is an incredible console that I think it's impossible to buy one of those and feel bad about it, basically.
Yeah, that's what we've, especially in contrast to the PC market and all of its dramas.
Yeah.
You're kind of going, and Xbox's inability to have a big marketing beat. You can kind of see, the lack of general competition and also the premium nature that they're going for with the PlayStation has definitely worked for people. I
mean, if you just have like IPs that, let's be real, are bigger than Halo happening on the regular. Sad for me to say as a Halo kid, but it is what it is. So we're looking at 11 million sales for Ragnarok since launch.
That's so insane.
Yeah, we saw, of course, their PC strategy go well with Miles Morales on PC as well. When you go into that, then physical software grew 216% year over year, which means 86.5 million titles sold for the platform. 20.8 million of those were first party, which is an absolutely incredible achievement. Digital's up 34%. Digital downloads are 62% of titles sold in PlayStation services this quarter.
Which is interesting, actually, if you think about it from the quarter perspective. And you go, well, look at the offering that they have with PlayStation Plus now. And I'm going to be honest, it is like, it doesn't quite rival Game Pass in terms of new games and indies coming out. But in terms of hey, do you want a very big library of very good and very varied video games to play? PS Plus is I can't remember which. I think it's Extra is the middle one that gives you the most stuff, and it's really very good. So the fact that they're still blasting their digital software up kind of goes to show that the idea of that isn't going to cannibalize your sales very hard, and that's kind of a little bit more proof of they're winning very hard, very hard.
Yeah, and now, so their network services is up 19% year over year to 122 billion yen, of course.
Yeah, and that'll obviously be premium. That'll be premium getting more, more revenue per user.
So the breakdown of that, PS Plus has 46.4 million subscribers across all of its different SKUs. That is, that's up from Q2. MAUs are up to 112 million, which is the highest that it's been in 2 years. Now, for those numbers to get that high, when we are not in a lockdown situation where everyone's buying a Switch for Animal Crossing and everyone's playing their console, or whatever, like especially with how big the PS4, of course, still was, like that is just honestly incredible numbers. And for their future thoughts, like Jim Ryan go hard, because Sony thinks PlayStation is going to keep on this very positive trajectory with their basically a 32% increase predicted for this year.
Yeah, which I would kind of laugh at sometimes. Go, you God of War Ragnarok was massive. How are you gonna like top that? And then you think they probably Spider-Man, and then there's going to be a recurring thing that I think. Obviously people have mixed feelings on it, but The Last of Us, the like statistics coming out from that show is insane. They have done what I think people largely considered truly impossible for games, or close to it, which is you've made a show that has market penetration, almost like Arcane, but a live action version, which is going to mean, unfortunately, because obviously, animation's fantastic, but the live action is just going to hit a way wider spread of audience. like globally, and that's going to feed back into the IP.
Yeah.
That's going to feed back into the system.
fun.
Now it is unfortunate that all they have to sell is their remaster, so they'll have to figure something out there, maybe to build that up in future.
Yeah.
Once that multiplayer game gets going, maybe, cause I don't know if maybe you watch a show and then maybe you'll want a multiplayer version of it. I'm not quite sure.
Well,
But
even if it's like with Witcher, there is now part 1 and part 2 at a high price to buy on the PS5, the most up-to-date version. They're going to get good long-tail revenue from that. And Nick Offerman, man, if you thought he was just Ron Swanson between watching devs, seeing his performance in this, Nick Offerman.
Good actor.
Not to take anything away from the leads, of course. Yeah, incredible show, which really has made me realize I should watch Chernobyl, which is the thing that guy did before. Nintendo then. What is up with Nintendo? They'll be kind of brief. So, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and all of the complaints and problems, well, everyone bought it anyway. 20.61 million copies sold so far, which is honestly not that surprising. When you actually look at the game, I'll be honest, Arceus is a really pretty damn good game. And in many ways, Scarlet and Violet are good games too. The issue is, can Game Freak make a damn okay bit of software? And that's the really frustrating thing, because it has everything to be clowned at. But in quite a few ways, stuff actually plays pretty sweet. At least that is my opinion from being in and around, I would say, diehard Pokemon fans who are... diehard's the wrong word, because they are, in fact, completely sick of Game Freak essentially phoning it in. But they would say that, from a mechanical and game design perspective, Pokemon's just got better and better and better. Personally, I think I prefer Arceus with some of its mechanics. But point basically is, there is a reason why they would sell well. But goddamn, they've got to stop this absolute clown behavior. I imagine Nintendo themselves are pissed, because they just turn around and say, we did Breath of the Wild years ago. Hello?
Yeah.
We've then got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Cool little 52 million copies sold.
Yeah, hang on, because I know the Switch had broke 100 and something mil there recently. So that's basically every other person with a Switch has Mario Kart. That's an attach rate for a game
Oh, it is such an accessible and fun game. Bundles. You're often going to buy a Switch with a bundle, probably Mario Kart. And it's mad. So the top 10 games have all sold more than 15 million copies on Switch. Yeah. Basically, it has a completely unprecedented high attachment rate. And as some context here, the PlayStation 2's only game the top 15 million was San Andreas.
Which goes to show, because the PS2 sold a lot more than the Switch still. And
DVD players, by the way.
Yeah. So that's one of the things you kind of have to correct for that. And you look at the attach rate and go, oh, is the Switch the most successful console of all time? The answer is already a yes. And we haven't seen Tears of the Kingdom release. We haven't seen some of their bigger ones release. And their strategy of getting the virtual console stuff, it's not called that anymore. It's the Nintendo Switch Online emulation. That is getting... And I this is kind of personal, because I never really played with it very much until I got Splatoon 3 there and played it. Incredible game. They're very good at making new IP. But then got on someone's family plan and playing the stuff. And I'm like... in a way that PlayStation made a big deal of with their PS Plus Premium, and then kind of half-assed a wee bit with their early stuff, Nintendo were just basically going, oh yeah, here's the best of all of our entire platform history. You just sign up for a service and get there. If they marketed that better, it would be unbelievably good.
But they didn't.
Yeah. Because
they're still Nintendo, so there's always a dose of clown shit.
Yep.
Now, even with these incredible numbers like the 122.5 million sold Switches, they do have an overall downturn. They've lowered their predictions across the board for the rest of the financial year. Tears of the Kingdom is coming out in the next fiscal year, which will be in May, so numbers could be a bit different next time around. Now, the way we're used to hearing record profits, record sales, job cuts, or whatever. Nintendo are talking about there being a downturn in their business, but they've actually done a 10% pay rise across all Japanese employees. That's smart. If you can invest during the downturn, then you'll be set up to be super powerful in the upturn.
Yeah, it is a little bit frustrating, because it's so simple when you think about it. Sometimes you go, hey, we made loads of money. hey, staff, we made loads of money, so we're going to reward you for that. Because anyone who, obviously there's debates over the power of financial rewards in psychology, but you still go, like, from theoretically, you go, hey, that was good work, here's some money. Everyone goes, if we do good work, we get more money. Maybe we should try a little bit harder then. Yeah. You can't imagine that working. And then you go, why are they the only ones doing that? But I think I have this theory brewing in my head, which is Nintendo have just some sort of weird, like, reverse thing going on, where they will just look at what everyone else is doing. No, we won't do that. And then it turns out to be successful for them. They'll just be like, oh yeah, what's this? Live services? Just make big single player games. What's that? A super powerful console? Just make an accessible one. What's that? Remove all your staff and get rid of them? No, we'll just give them money. You're like, it's working. You're like, I imagine, obviously it's like, they are very good business people a lot of the time, but I think they must be sitting there going, why are we the only ones doing any of this? Why is no one else trying to copy us? It just works. It's wild that. It's wild. It is good to see that the Nintendo of America report from Kotaku saying their contractors are better as well, though. Getting us better thing, because that was one of the, like, oh, Nintendo bad press, and it's like, they're like, oh, fixed, gone, sorted.
So, it's time to talk about the ageless man, the Ubermensch,
Strauss Zelnick,
the most powerful, ageless, timeless, peak physical condition CEO in gaming, Strauss Zelnick, and Take-Two Interactive.
I finally actually read through his book, Becoming Ageless. It's full of very good advice on health and on physical health, general well-being, diet, exercise,
it's not
lifestyle. It's very good.
It's not woo-woo bullshit. It's just like, oh no, here's actionable list of things, suggested workouts and stuff. You're like, all right, Strauss, let's go.
Yeah.
So Strauss, I think he didn't take his health seriously till he was in his 40s, and now he's like in incredible shape. So it's quite interesting. And when he does talk about some things not doing well, I think he does have a refreshing, a few like decently refreshing things to say. Not that this is a show just about thinking Strauss Zelnick's pretty cool. Okay, here's the TLDR. They're coasting. They've tried some new things. Those haven't really worked out. But at the end of the day, they live in a world where GTA 5 Online still exists. And they can have a sports game. So that's kind of it. Basically, Strauss said that they're seeing softness in the overall market. And we have seen, some of that we talked about. Our titles are performing. We've gotten great review scores, terrific critical acclaim, and one after another, we've been delivering hits into the current market. But softness in terms of command, particularly for console and recurrent consumer spending related to those things. Now, that being said, they do say that their largest contributors are NBA 2K, Grand Theft Auto Online with 175 million units sold, and WWE 2K23, and a whole bunch of their mobile titles. They did talk about Red Dead Redemption 2 crossing the 50 million units sold milestone, which is pretty incredible, but, well, there were issues when it came into the fourth quarter. So we had new Tales from the Borderlands, we had Marvel's Midnight Suns, and those basically... they didn't have much commentary other than they were well enough critically received. Basically, in a conversation with Bloomberg, Midnight Suns was described as a commercial flop. Zelnick basically said that maybe the release window wasn't perfect, but that being a Firaxis game, he thinks it will have a chance to grow over time. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of those things where the core Firaxis fans... It's like you're kind of Venn diagramming your players, right? It's like, okay, for this game to be... Because, like, I like XCOM and stuff. I'm not particularly, like, into Marvel. So if this was a new Civ game, it would be in my Steam library and I'd own it. But it's, like, not really a theme that I want. And then maybe for a lot of people who, they like Marvel's, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, or they liked at least what maybe Avengers could have been in another universe. Maybe they are like... I don't want to play Marvel XCOM, actually. So you know what I mean? And the kind of like, how big is the crossing of these Venn diagrams? Even though we know, like, Firaxis can make a really good game, and I've seen quite a few positive things about its design.
Yeah, I've seen good things about its design, and I've also seen good things about what it did with Marvel, in terms of it wasn't just, hey, here's some MCU tripe to get people in. It was like, hey, we actually, we're going to really delve into an era of comics, and we're going to... recreate it faithfully, but also add our own twist and basically they did a very good job with it. It's just they also sent it out to die in November. You don't release a game in November unless you either are 100% sure you're going to get people away. But if you're trying to like branch out, that is not it.
Yeah.
I think they just kind of they delayed it and got stuck between a rock and a hard place, I think. So hopefully it does kind of grow. So obviously you'd hate to see Firaxis go, that wasn't worth it. Maybe we should try to branch out a little bit more, or like I guess pivot to try and save ourselves. It is very nice to have a niche developer go, hey, we're really good at this kind of game. We're going to keep making it.
So next I've got an opposite of the revenue pyramid that people like us would like to see. Them acquiring Zynga was a big deal. I guess much like Activision Blizzard acquiring King, which does make, I mean, you think about some of the Microsoft comments where they've been trying to say, oh no, it's really King that we want. So they talked about their yearly net bookings, okay? 46% are Zynga. Zynga are the largest in terms of their revenue.
Of course.
Yeah. Behind that, 2K. So that's the sports with the Ultimate Team-like systems. Then Rockstar, which is GTA Online, and then the group that would be maybe making the games that would perhaps appeal to us a bit more outside of a mainline GTA release, like actually playing it for the game, not the like online thing. Private Division, which is one of their labels, 1%.
Yeah, I had some interesting thoughts on this, right? Where, because the way I found out about this was I was asked, what percentage of what, and I had certainly thought Rockstar would be bigger. That was disappointing to hear that 2K is so much like over double the size of Rockstar. When you go, at least because you have your qualms about GTA Online and stuff, but at least the likes of Red Dead and GTA are good games. You kind of go, okay, well, that's fine. But then looking at them being 1%, I was like, that's really sad. You don't want to go that way.
In fairness, when you look at the games, it was a softer time for them. So to actually look at the Private Division games, their first one was Kerbal Space Program Enhanced Edition. Then it was Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey, which was, I think it was the co-creator or something like that, Patrice of Assassin's Creed, and that didn't do particularly well. Then, of course, we have The Outer Worlds by Obsidian Entertainment, and maybe they were thinking that was going to be a very, very strong, partnership for them going forward, but obviously Obsidian is then acquired by Microsoft. Then we have Disintegration, which is them trying to move into the shooter space. Disintegration involved, I've forgotten the guy's name, but he was one of the Halo co-creators.
Marcus or something was his name?
Perhaps, yeah.
Can't remember. Yeah.
Marcus Leto? Wasn't that?
I think so, yeah. I think so, but yeah.
Disintegration did flop, though. So when you actually look at their first 4 big budget titles, we have one success in Outer Worlds. Yeah. You then look at Hades, where they seemingly published the console version.
It was just physical copies.
Just physical.
That's all they did, yeah.
So probably not major for their revenue. And then we come to 2022, which is what we're talking about here, where they, with Roll 7, put out Ollie Ollie World and Rollerdrome.
And this is where I have a personal stake because Rollerdrome was very good. I didn't play an awful lot of it, but what I did play was really astoundingly fun, well put together. So you look at Private Division and go, well, they're 1% of revenue. So surely they must be less than 1% of cost, you would hope, for them to still operate. I think you'd hope they're profitable enough. So this is where I was conflicted, because I was annoyed going, come on, of course the video games that are like more interesting and more kind of for me as someone who's grown up with video games and likes interesting indies. Okay, that's sad. But then I thought, why did they bother doing it? And the answer is clearly if it's 1% of revenue, they could easily just take all of their resources they're throwing into Private Division and say, just go work at Zynga or go work at 2K.
Yeah,
or
you don't see Bobby thinking that makes any sense.
Yeah, and it doesn't from a company perspective. It literally doesn't. Well, okay, it might if you go for the Private Division trying to be, hey, we're a brand, we've got the IP, we've got the prestige. But even thinking in that way is like, that's not something you would expect a lot of
you can see how
do.
see how they thought big. Right, with like Outer Worlds to kind of get that Fallout thing, Disintegration to maybe get the kind of Halo thing that was not working. Now, when we look into its future, you've got Kerbal Space Program 2, which comes out, I believe, it actually comes out the February 24th, which is the same day as the Pale Beyond, our game, comes out, so that's kind of funny. Then After Us, so maybe not humongous in 2023, but then, well, we do have a Middle-earth game with Weta Workshop. We have something with Bloober Team, who... the Polish dev who made like the likes of the Medium and stuff like that. And then also Moon Studio, who are the Ori and the Blind Forest people. So I'm not saying that all of those are going to be humongous, but some decent things. But overall, yeah, like you kind of compare what's going on here to just Zynga, 46% revenue. And actually on that, they say that they expect recurrent consumer spending to grow by 85% and represent 77% of total net bookings, meaning that only 23% of their money is going to be actual game sales. I guess until there's a new GTA or there is a new Red Dead or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so certainly is something. Things are going more digital, which is hardly surprising. Overall, then, Strelnick, he was talking about, some slightly lower prediction. He said, our teams are delivering and over-delivering. They're delivering hits. That's what they're supposed to do. I couldn't be more proud of them. Personally, I have work to do to make sure we run this business efficiently and that we deliver results over time. That's what I aim. That's what I aim to do. Yeah, he's sort of taking some responsibility. I think would be the read on that, which is certainly good. Now those efficiencies, that's to the tune of $50 million, impacting personnel, process, infrastructure, and other areas, particularly in publishing and corporate functions. And when he was pressed on that, he didn't deny that layoffs could happen, but that if required, these would be targeted as a part of wider changes before that point, saying, we don't expect any kind of broad-based reduction in force. We are going department by department and trying to drive efficiency, which obviously, look, as the CEO, that's something that you do have to do.
That's his job.
If you have a bunch of departments in your business, they have a whole bunch of overlap, maybe it makes sense to reduce that overlap, right? Like, sometimes people see layoffs and they purely go, oh, this is just terrible evil capitalism at play. Sometimes it is just, well, this is not an efficient organization. Now you could then say that, maybe the overarching economic system is what drives some of this shit. And yeah, sure it does. But, under any other system, like an inefficient factory with loads of duplicate functions doesn't make sense. Right? So that is the kind of thing that he does have to do. I think he's definitely trying to appear to be careful here in how he phrases it, saying like, oh no, department by department. I think that sort of thing where you don't want a Google-like perception where imagine you're like a H-1B visa, you're on vacation, and then you get fired. This is actually what some people were impacted or, had happened with Google because a lot of the tech workers that come from outside the US, but the immigrant visa is very much like, oh yeah, if you don't get a job soon, you're goodbye, which is pretty rough. So I think you definitely don't want to kind of have that look. So I guess to take it overall, live service revenue really is the picture here. I mean, you look at Activision Blizzard. They're talking about Overwatch even doing really well. What is that? It's the live service recurrent user spending. World of Warcraft, I mean, hey, we've been playing a live service before you guys even knew what they were. I think the best example of this is it's Zynga, 2K, and Rockstar. That it is the best example, and I suppose the same way you've got your Warzone mobile, your COD mobile, especially just thinking about GTA. Like, that's what people want to hit, whether it's Apex Legends or anything like that.
Yeah, I think the one thing I find interesting is it's very difficult to pick out, I guess, to put it bluntly, the things we really care about in a lot of these. Obviously, the industry trends will inform that, but there's a little, especially with, like, as an example, Take-Two in Private Division, you go, well, hopefully those efficiencies aren't Private Division, but can't. I can't imagine that. It's clearly part of their business model, and they've got plans for the future. But it's kind of like, yeah, this is all very big live service revenue. It'd be nice if we could like break off into a little corner and go, okay, can we ignore all of this and just talk about like the revenue of how, full single player games are selling and how like interesting games are selling? Wouldn't that be nice? But we obviously can't separate them whatsoever, which is unfortunate, but it is just, yeah, that's where if you're looking for money, you'll probably go there, especially because it's so safe. Yeah. But as we have covered very recently, it's safe once you get established.
That's the thing. But, it's incredibly risky before that, because the thing is, a private division's 1%, but a private division that is ran well and cost controlled, yes, you might lose 1 or 2 zeros, which, yeah, does kind of suck, but that can be a long-term, healthy, sustainable business, instead of a business that is just big bet, big bet, big bet, big bet, Anthem, Battlefield, Anthem, Battlefield, kind of pulling an EA. which, of course, EA have been able to really turn a lot of their prospects around in terms of game quality. The reason why we've not talked about them today is because I already did a deep dive on EA a few days ago on the channel, which you can check out. But overall, I think with this, we can see how there is a lot to like for us core gamers. There's also a few things to be worried about. A world where Elden Ring does so well is a bloody good world to be in. But ultimately, just look at that GTA Online money, or that 2K money, or that FIFA Ultimate Team money. And, I think we still do know what way the wind is blowing. Even you listen to Strauss and co., they're talking about that type of revenue. They expect that to only increase. I mean, I know there'll be sort of a diminishing magnitude of increase, but if they are, if they're at 77% now and that's continually growing, like how long till that's 85%? Mm-hmm. Till that's 90%, maybe Zynga start to get a few hits or something. And, then we are in a pretty interesting situation. A lot of those mobile games, I mean, you don't need... It's funny, you say you don't need as many people. I mean, you look at Supercell, they do the Clash of whatever games. They have a lot of staff. But still, I remember somebody... I can actually forget. It may have been King, but somebody from a mobile company like 2 years ago emailed us and just said like, oh yeah, in the office, like we know what sort of thing we work on, but we also know for every dollar we're paid in wages, how many more dollars we generate for the company than the Diablo 4 team or than the whatever team.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You wonder.
Yeah, I would have a lot more of a kind of doomer perspective on this, if not for the fact I'm thinking about a video that we're going to record soon, which is what does 2023 look like for video games? And so far, at least what I can tell, based on games that have released in January, games that released in February so far, how things are looking, that it looks like if you're willing to not get particularly caught up in how awful it is to like have consistent live services, then I think the games are looking great. Games are looking honestly fantastic. There's some absolutely bangers that are coming out. They're getting better and better.
I don't want to say, the pie's getting bigger, so your smaller slice is good. I don't want to get too much into that, but a lot of this recurrent user spending, I think, is the games industry growing outside of our sphere, and it's just that sort of thing. That's the high growth area. Our sphere can still grow and still be, in absolute terms, pretty large, but just relatively small in comparison. But because not everybody can make a big bet Rockstar tier live game, or a World of Warcraft, or a big FIFA, there's always going to be, like, developers making indie games like us. There's always going to be double A's working under Embracer Group. Like, that's just the way that it kind of goes.
Yeah, I think it's always been the case there's going to be indies. I think people kind of go, well, yeah, that's always going to be like a thing. I think what people are most upset about is the idea of AAA not being for them.
That's it.
I think it's hey, remember the games that we used to love playing made by the people? Oh, well, all of the people who would make those games now are off making live services, and they're all in they're trapped in company hell making these things for us. Whereas I think ultimately what we've seen is as live services start to fail and they go, oh, well, maybe this is too risky. And most of this is informed by what I see from Square Enix and EA. And they just kind of make games. And looking at EA's output in the first couple of months this year, the first quarter, the fact that we've got Dead Space, an exceptional remake. Wild Hearts, at the time of recording, Wild Hearts is not reviewing, but previewing, and that's out this week. It's previewing extremely well. I was saying this is, because, you think, hey, here's Monster Hunter. What would EA do to Monster Hunter? And you immediately think, Dead Space 3 Monster Hunter, Mass Effect 3 Monster Hunter, or I guess Mass Effect Andromeda Monster Hunter, or
3
Anthem
even
Monster
just
Hunter,
in terms of EA like forcing it to be made under conditions that are bad for making a game.
And everyone's saying, hey, they've made obviously it's developed by Koei Tecmo, but you're sitting going, oh, hey, this is a pretty good game and there's no bullshit. This is kind of, and it's interesting enough that it's not a carbon copy. It's like trying to be inventive with the formula a little bit in a good way. Hey, that's awesome. And then you get Jedi's Forever coming out. You're like, if you'd told me 3 years ago that's what EA's Q1 2023 looked like, I'd have called you a raving lunatic.
It is an insanely strong Q1.
Yeah, and the fact that those are games that they're happy to make and they're like critically coming out well. and they're selling well enough, as far as we can tell. Whenever we see their next report, if we get to see Dead Space sold like hotcakes, Jedi Survivor sold like hotcakes, Wild Hearts didn't sell like hotcakes, but it at least met expectations. If everyone else looks at that and goes, can we hang on, so our live service attempts have all failed miserably. What's EA doing? Oh, they're making games? Oh, why didn't we think of that? And then we'll have a 2025, 2026, 2027 of good ass video games from AAA developers who are kind of going, oh yeah, almost in the sense that they have to come crawling back to us because their live service efforts failed. It's a bit of a dramatic read on it, a bit of the Hallmark movie read on it, but that's how I feel sometimes. I'm like, yeah, we were here ready to give you money for your games the whole time. You better remember that. So that's why I'm seeing like a live service, yeah, but I'm hopeful enough.
Yeah. So look, there you go. If you would like to get a 40,000 foot view of what's actually going on in the world, you can check out today's sponsor, Ground News, who have a mission that we very much believe in here. So you can check them out down below if you want to support the show. And other than that, thanks for listening. And yeah, man, we'll see you next time.